Well, just how significant are skyscrapers for a country's economy? Well, Andrew Lawrence, founder of Oculus Research Asia, joins me live from Hong Kong to look into that. So let's start with what skyscrapers have come to signify when it comes to economic development and cultural production.
Well, certainly. Back in '99, I wrote a paper that looked at the world's tallest buildings, their period of construction, and impending financial downturns in the economies. And what I found was that there was very much an unhealthy correlation between the two. So if we think about New York, 1930, Chicago, 1974, and Kuala Lumpur in 1997 with the Asian financial crisis. Obviously, since then, we saw Taipei 101 around the time of the dot-com boom, and obviously Taiwan is very much tech-centric. And then in 2008, it was construction of the Burj Khalifa and the new world's tallest building.
Now, it's interesting because in that report, you said that the world's tallest buildings are simply the edifice of a broader skyscraper building boom reflecting a widespread misallocation of capital and an impending economic correction. So tell us what you looked at when you were making that determination.
Certainly. So while the world's tallest buildings, if you like, catch the headlines, there is a significant amount of construction work going on beneath. And what we found was that in countries that were building the world's tallest building, there was often a huge amount of building of taller properties going on underneath them. And we were able to cluster those building constructions into clear bubbles. And so we were able to identify building booms that were simply topped off, if you like, by the world's tallest building.
So as we look now at where the world's highest skyscrapers are, where they are and how they're distributed, how are those regions' economies faring?
So what's interesting is the way that the skyscrapers have been moving around globally. Obviously, we saw predominantly US dominance of skyscrapers, really for most of 20th century. And then we started to move to Asia in 1997, and we had the Asian financial crisis, Taipei, and then we started to move into the Middle East with the Burj Khalifa. More recently, if we look at building booms, what we see is that China has come up significantly in the amount of skyscrapers that it's building. Today, China is building 60 out of the top 100 skyscrapers in the world that are under construction.
So then given what you know from your index, what does that mean potentially for China's economic future?
Well, certainly if we go back, what we find is that the world's tallest building and skyscraper building boom has been consistent with a looser monetary policy, excess liquidity, lower interest rates than perhaps would be required by the economy, and drive a building boom and perhaps excesses at the top of the cycle.
Now, some analysts didn't go as far as agreeing all the way with some of the findings from the report, but they did note the correlation between increasing GDP and skyscraper height. Tell us more about that.
So what we find, what their study found, was that if they follow the world's tallest buildings back, they do coincide with GDP per capita peaks. And now that would be consistent with a typical cycle where you see excess liquidity in the economy driving the economy to its peaks. And so we would naturally expect some correlation between the two measures.
Now, as cities develop and become more densely populated, it does seem to make sense to really use more use of the vertical space, especially in financial districts. But do these high rises and high finance areas also always mean high debt?
Well, if we go back across the index, then certainly we can see clear recognition between 1929 and New York, 2008 more recently. Now, most of these have corresponded with high periods of debt build-up and a financial reckoning afterwards into a recession. So we like to say that skyscrapers are dreamt in the upturn, constructed in the boom period, and complete into the recession.
Certainly worth noting. Thank you so much. Andrew Lawrence, their founder of Oculus Research Asia.